We're going to look at our last segment of grammar in Lección 7. In Lección 2, you learned how to express preferences with gustar. You will now look in deeper at the verb gustar and some other similar verbs. Let's look at these examples. Me gusta ese shampoo. I like that shampoo. What does it mean when you say I like that shampoo? The idea is basically something about the shampoo is pleasing to me. So if we actually use that literal meaning, it's not going to make sense in our everyday vernacular in English. So we would probably say, I like that shampoo. Then we have, te gustaron las clases. Did you like the classes? So the literal, again, there being, is it pleasing to you? That's what we're kind of translating into this form of like. As the examples that we just gave showed, constructions with gustar do not have a direct translation word for word to English that makes sense. The literal meaning of these constructions is to be pleasing to someone, and it requires the use of an indirect object pronoun. If you look at the diagram above, you're going to notice how in the Spanish sentence, the object being liked, which here is the shampoo, is really the subject of the sentence. The person who likes the object, therefore, is the indirect object because it answers the question, to whom is it pleasing? In English, you're going to notice it's not the same. If I translate it in English to a way that makes sense in our vernacular, the subject is I, not shampoo, and it's I like what? I like that shampoo. So the construction of the sentence is completely different when we're translating, and this is why those features that our automatic translators mess up a lot is because they're missing the ability to write it in a way that makes sense within the language. So, te gusta Juan Carlos? Do you like Juan Carlos? Instead of, is Juan Carlos pleasing to you? And then, me gustan los cafés que tienen música en vivo. So I like those cafes with live music. Other verbs are used in the same way as gustar. You're going to notice they are going to cycle around the same type of vein of verb with feelings. So here's a list of a couple ones. So we have tabor, which if we think about that, that's not too, it's kind of an opposite of to like. We have encantar, which is to love or to like something very much. To lack, to fascinate, to be important, to be interesting, to bother, or to be left over. So all of these verbs are going to have that same idea where they're not going to translate directly word for word. Now, a couple of things to pay attention to. Faltar is going to be used when something is lacking, which is the word we use, or missing. So the translation is like gustar is to please. We're going to say that faltar is to be missing something. So we're not going to say I'm lacking one page. That would seem very strange. Or nos quedan 3 pesos for quedar is what we have left. Even though the direct translation of that word is to be left over, it doesn't necessarily fit into our English daily language to say we have 3 pesos left over. Quedar can also mean to fit. So if I have something like estos zapatos me quedan bien, these shoes fit me well. This is another place that if we were directly translating or sometimes using translation software, it could get very confused because remember, quedar is going to be left over or to fit. So if it tries to translate this to be left over, that's going to become very confusing. So context, once again, is incredibly important with these. Most commonly used verbs with these, most commonly used verb forms with gustar and similar verbs are going to be the third person. So if I had to say, 70% of the time you're going to conjugate to third person, I would feel pretty good about saying that. When the object or person being liked is singular, the singular form of the verb is going to be used. When two or more objects or persons are being liked, we're going to bring that over to the plural form. So I have the following diagram, which is just going to show you the difference with singular and plural here. So if I look at the plural forms, I have las vacaciones, which is plural. I have los museos de Lima, which is also plural, museums plural. In singular, I would have la película, el concierto, one thing, not more than one thing. To express what someone likes or does not like to do, so actionable things we're liking or don't liking, we're going to use the appropriate verb followed by the infinitive. So we shouldn't really have two conjugations right next to each other unless we're using a tense that requires that. So here, notice both of the following verbs are in infinitive form, and they're referencing the like or dislike that comes before them. As we learned in Lección 2, the construction of a plus a pronoun, and that pronoun could be me, ti, usted, él, is used to clarify or emphasize who is pleased, bored, etc. That construction should be used before the indirect object pronoun to clarify or to emphasize who is pleased. And then last, just a reminder, me has an accent mark to distinguish it from the possessive. So if you're using it as me, as in the person, instead of my, we're going to make sure that we have that accent at the top, especially when you're working in portales, when you're looking at your assignments, because if you don't include the accent, that is going to be incorrect.